the good part of being an architect, what have I do in life, even if you do AI, you need a building.
I think if it's done well, it would be a great experiment of how one infrastructure could connect a city like Bangalore.
They conflate the word development with building flyovers. The word PPP is seen as a partnership with the private sector. This year, the only drain that didn't flood was K100 because of a simple policy change. How will you solve Bangalore's traffic problem? I give you in one line what to do.
Now, that is probably on, at least for all the Bangaloreans, this will be on top of the wish list right now.
The only tattwa that works in India is Akasha, which is broadband.
So you're the man that helped Church Street.
I've been on Church Street since I was some 10 years old or something. I've seen that place since I was very young. You must have seen, we used to make the front page of the New York Times when Bengaluru lake used to catch fire. But you notice for the past 2 years, nothing has happened.
Correct.
Mainly because of this main project. There are 1.2 crore vehicles and almost 4,000 registered every day. And it's also the largest city in the world. That's the official reason. Without a defined red light area. Why is it that you behave differently in an airport? Why don't you throw trash there? Why don't you spit around the place? Why don't you use it as a wall, as a public toilet? And why would you do the same thing when it comes to a bus stand?
Yeah.
And the railway station is somewhere in between. And as an architect, this is my way of giving something back. So I do all these projects on a mostly pro bono basis. In front of my office is Akithimanalli Kere. That's a Kere.
The hockey stadium is actually originally
I took this office because of the Kere and they filled it up. And there's a mosquito control measure.
Oh, damn.
We found the entire sofa set with side table. The World Bank has taken cognizance of it. They've sanctioned in principle about close to 4,000 crores. Because the people who are making these decisions are driving around in cars. They are not taking buses.
True.
And it's also a political economy issue. Projects fuel the political economy. Bangalore will get a 900 kilometer long waterfront.
Wow.
For a city which is not next to the water, this is like a thing, no?
Mr. Naresh Narasimhan, thank you so much for being on our podcast, Builders of Bharat. Welcome. And more importantly, congratulations on 55 years of Venkataraman Associates. It's been a very, very long journey.
Yeah.
1969.
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong. Is when
we shared the same birthday as Karnataka, November 1st. So
nice.
November 1st, we turned 55 years old.
Beyond anything else, there are 2-3 ways I'd like to sort of introduce you. One is the man who built India's first software park. And also, I believe, in your own words, coined the term software park as well.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Tell us a bit about that journey. Which was the first software park that you built and how did that go about?
The first one was really Infosys Park, which is the original part of Infosys, which has their corporate office and all that. It is still a very low-rise, looks like a very campus kind of.
This was in Bangalore.
Electronic.
The original one.
And there was a scheme at that time of the government of India called Software Park Scheme, which allowed some kind of incentives. So it was some policy document of the government.
This was pre-liberalization?
No, this was in the mid-90s.
Okay.
Mostly. Everything had happened in India more or less after the
Yes.
IT particularly.
You personally are somebody that advocates public to be bought into public infrastructure. The conversation, ideally, according to you, is ideal.
In India, we don't seem to, I think we're suffering from what I call is the tragedy of the commons. It's a literary phrase, but the issue is that we all seem to have perfect homes, which are very clean most of the time and well kept. But our public spaces, the moment you step out of your home into the street, we go to a sort of minus 20 on 10 kind of score compared to the quality of our homes. Our homes now are as good as anywhere else in the world, are probably even better.
True.
Or even our office spaces for that matter, or public buildings. But somehow public infrastructure, the streets, the pavements, the playgrounds, or even the leisure spaces are full of fill, badly designed, a death trap for pedestrians, etc., etc. So I'm always sort of fascinated, but why we don't consider the outdoors as important as the indoors, and why we don't own the outdoors as a people. And it's got nothing to do with national wealth I've seen countries that are poorer than India and much cleaner.
Interesting.
So
do you think it's a cultural problem?
I have a feeling it's partly a cultural problem, and also maybe we lack a sense of community. That as a community, we own what is outdoors is also ours, not just what is indoors.
But a quick sort of digression from that to ask you if you think this is something to do with the post-British era. Is this a thing of independence India? Because historically, India has been at least culturally known to be...
No, we are very good at intangible culture. But in terms of physical culture, there is definitely a gap. I'm not arguing with the intangible culture of India. I think we have too much of it, if you ask me. Firstly, we have too much history also. But in the tangible culture, we don't seem to have a sense of ownership of public. But curiously, that's not the case consistently. Suppose you take the example of an airport. Why is it? It's a public space.
True.
And you contrast it with a bus stand, like Kempegowda bus stand. Why is it that you behave differently in an airport? Why don't you throw trash there? Why don't you spit around the place? Why don't you use it as a wall, as a public toilet? And why would you do the same thing in a exact opposite when it comes to a bus stand?
Yeah.
And the railway station is somewhere in between. You understand? So it's not consistent, this behavior. But what we have noticed is that whenever it's well finished and well done, if the outdoors becomes as good as the indoors in terms of finish quality and somebody is put into it, people tend to treat it with respect automatically. That is what I mean when I say if you bring the public into public infrastructure, like if you notice the example of Church Street, and I've given this example before, where you notice that the amount of trash generated there is almost negligible because people tend to think that, they are in some nice place and they shouldn't spoil the environment.
So, can you tell me what exactly you tried with Church Street? Of course, for our viewers, if you can also dwell into the whole process of redesigning Church Street. How did that go about? So you're the man that helped Church Street
I have grown
beautify it.
I've been on Church Street since I was some 10 years old or something. I had seen that place since I was very young. And so 10 years back, I was just walking on a street in Paris. And curiously, I had the same proportions of Church Street. It's not 15 years back, must be long back. And then I was thinking, what is the great difficulty? And it was beautifully done. It had street side cafes, great shops, and it also had the same proportion. Like,
the whole
a lot of bars and restaurants, and everything was working beautifully. And I said, why can't we have something like this in India? And when we saw Church Street, we found that it had about 50 or 60 bars and restaurants. It had a variety of shops. It had public transportation. It has a metro station. It has, curiously, I think the only street left in India is just 5 bookstores.
Oh yeah, that's actually an interesting on a single street.
Single street. And it's less than a kilometer long. So what we decided was, we spoke to the government, the BBMP, as well as the state government, and said that, can we fix this? Because it was broken. It was the sewage lines hadn't been changed since 1940 or something. The water lines were 1 inch thick. All the sewage lines had atherosclerosis. It had fat deposits, and it had completely got jammed. Every day it would break.
Oh,
it was a stinking mess it was, and the road was broken. Generally, it was a mess.
Yeah,
and it was curiously also the most popular street for young people.
True.
Even then. So we went to the government and said very they had a fiduciary grant from the government, I think, under the Finance Commission. They had some money to be used for upgrading public spaces. So we matched the need. BBMP took the lead on that. And
Interesting.
And it got a lot of support from the government at that time. And what we did was only 3-4 things. One is rationalize the width of the footpath. So you always have a 2-meter footpath consistently or wider. What has happened now is, I'll tell you what happened now later.
Okay.
So then you also brought in a consistent carriageway, cobblestones, not to make it look like Europe. If we put cobbles, we could not, first we wanted to make it a pedestrian street, but there are about 30 families and about 3 offices on the street with car parking. So,
okay.
So we moved it from pedestrian only to pedestrian oriented. Commercial street could easily be pedestrian only. That's also not happening. So they haven't still got used to the idea in India. So the cobblestones, if you drive on cobblestones, you'll make a noise and you'll slow down automatically.
Right. And also, I think most people do not understand that a street and a road are two different things.
Yeah. So I was coming to that. People think that a street is where a pedestrian has priority. A road is where a vehicle has priority. It's fairly simple. And this is not a main road. So this is not connecting 2 roads, two separate roads.
Right.
So this was a street. And I think what has happened is that, and what you don't see, which what makes the street work, is that 80% of what you don't see is under the ground. It has dusting. It has all the infrastructure taken care of. If it rains, it drains in 5 minutes. It never floods. And it's almost 8 years now, it's never been cut.
That is what I was going to get to next. Has it ever been cut since you?
No. Some stones have come out. There have been some, because some heavy trucks were allowed inside. It's not designed for heavy vehicle traffic. Big trucks were allowed. Some mistake happened. But fixable, not a... It needs some amount. There are 144,000 cobblestones. 1 or 2 are bound to may not have been fixed properly.
Of course.
But it's fixed already. But now a private initiative has come into place. The whole street is being upgraded now after 7 years. All the
is it
minor damage is going to be rectified.
So was this executed under PPP model?
No.
It was completely done by BBMP.
Under their own contract with the I don't believe in no. The government is people like you and me. They're not empowered enough, or they live in a different reward culture than the private sector. You have to understand that. Risk reward sector is so you have to come up with something which will give the people a sense of pride, no? And then automatically things will happen. We have proposed 9 streets like that in Bangalore, in every area.
Oh wow! Which
only one
which are they? Do you remember?
All over Malleshwaram, 8th Cross, one in Koramangala, then one in Indranagar, 100 feet road, multiple things. Almost nothing got done. One foot street in VV Puram is almost ready.
Getting done now.
Yeah. But what is happening is that these places are succeeding too much. The Street Vendor Act in Bangalore is not being enforced. So the whole street is now occupied by
street
vendors. By Supreme Court order, they have to have only designated vending areas. But they're occupying everything, and it's difficult to enforce also because it's a bit of a humanitarian thing. So the same thing is starting to happen in Vivipuram. Gandhi Bazaar was another thing which they did the exercise by another group of architects. But the whole thing is occupied by street vendors. So we have to have now a balance between vending areas and also pedestrian areas. So and maybe more of these kind of streets will decongest it, but Church Street definitely needs some amount of enforcement.
Interesting. So that's happening now anyway.
Well, we hope. It's not that easy, but the upgrade is happening.
Interesting. And the other thing that was your initiative, I believe, through MOD, which is your NGO. Is it right to call it an NGO?
It's a MOD. Well, yeah, not really. It's actually the CSR arm of Venkataraman Associates, my firm. And how do I put it? the motivation for MOD Foundation is MOD stands for modern. That's all. I like modern. Modern is good. The motivation is this city, Namma Bengaluru, has given us everything.
True.
And as an architect, this is my way of giving something back. So I do all these projects on a mostly pro bono basis. Sometimes I get a little bit of, if I incur a lot of cost, then the government helps me out. But it's mostly pro bono. And we run the architecture firm pays for
the design
it's our way of giving back to the city.
Interesting. And the more, again, your, I don't know how to put it, maybe you can use better words, but K100, which I think can also do so much for Bangalore.
The street is 1 kilometer. So what we do is we propose multiple projects to the city, which we feel will have a high impact if we measure it by the impact. Like if you took a church street as an impact study, do you think 1 in 10 people in Bangalore would have visited it?
I hope so, yeah.
1 in 10. Bangalore has 13 crore people.
Yeah.
13 million people.
13 million. 1.3 crores.
Sorry, 13 million people. You think 1 million would have gone there? That's a lot of people. That's 10 lakh people.
Yeah.
Imagine, and plus you tourists. Bengaluru or Matrala.
I think more.
Yeah.
More than half of Bangalore would have gone to Church Street, especially after the whole revamp.
Succeeded too much. I wish they had done all the 9. So that would have been spread out a bit.
Yeah.
There are places like that in every area, Alva. So Church Street was particularly odd because it has 60, 70 bars and restaurants in that one stretch.
Now I think you have too many options.
Yeah, now it's spread all over.
Yeah.
Right? And it brought back life to the set. It was shut because even MG Road was the metro and all had shut down.
Correct.
And Church Street was also on the doldrums.
Correct.
So the whole center of the city became alive again.
Correct.
Because of that one project.
Around the same time is when they took up the other, the Art Street, is it?
Yes.
What was it called? Either Kelagade, under the flyover, when they widened the MG Road.
That was before that.
That was before Church Street revamp. Interesting. So yeah, K100. So
I thought 1 kilometer Ilmada ito, slightly let's bite off some more than we can. That's an 11 kilometer stretch from Majestic to Bengaluru. You must have seen, we used to make the front page of the New York Times when Bengaluru Lake used to catch fire. Have you noticed for the past 2 years, nothing has happened?
Correct.
It's mainly because of this main project. K100, what is happening in Bangalore is that from Raja Kalve, it is a stormwater drain.
Sorry, I'll stop you just before that because I want you to talk about Bangalore, the history of how actually Bangalore came about to be. Because Bangalore itself, very interestingly, does not have waterways directly connected to it. How did it come about? Please tell us that and then we'll get into Raja Kalve.
Bangalore is the largest city in the world for a variety of reasons. Do you know the?
No, please.
It is the largest city in the world, not situated next to a water body or a geographical feature. Right. Most cities in the world are situated next to a river, a sea, a river and a sea, and then a mountain, something to protect it.
Yeah.
From one side. Bangalore sits on top of a ridge.
Correct.
In the middle of nowhere, on one of the highest points in the Deccan Plateau.
Correct.
And the closest river is some 140 kilometers away, which is the Kaveri.
Right.
Of any use. Arkavati is a little closer. But it's also the largest city in the world for other reasons. One of them is a risky reason. It's a bit off color,
but please.
We can tell you that. People don't know that. It's also, what do you call it? The largest city I've seen in the world without organized crime. Have you noticed that?
Interesting. Maybe till the 90s. Since then, not so
all
much.
gone. They're all encountered away.
No more.
Yeah, but there is, for such a large city not to have organized crime, it's a bit strange.
True.
It's also probably the only Indian city, I won't say world city, without footpath dwellers. Have you ever seen one?
That's an interesting observation.
Nowhere. No, even I'm not saying there is no poor people or slum-like areas in Bangalore, but nobody actually lives on the footpath.
Correct.
For the vast majority of the city.
Correct.
Alva?
Correct. SF has a big problem.
Yeah. Like,
Now.
you don't see like that here. Alva.
True.
Yeah, I notice all these things. And it's also the largest city in the world. That's the official reason. Without a defined red light area. Think about it. Most cities in the world will have one street, everybody will know.
Oh, is it so?
Bangalore,
On the off-color
all
side?
over the place, but not, no red light.
But is there like Calcutta is known to have one that is very designated.
Everybody knows all these names. Bombay has some Grand Road or Delhi has some SP. Every place, or even smaller cities will have one. But Bangalore is a strange anomaly.
Interesting.
And it's also the largest city in the world where water is pumped the longest distance. It's uphill, and we pay some 40 to 50 crores electricity charge every month. The BWSHB has to pay BESCOM. It's pumped uphill. It's pumped uphill from the Kaveri, which is almost 140 kilometers, 150 kilometers.
Right.
So it has a lot of the only other city. So I got curious when I saw this. Then I was every time we.
Sorry. I know this because of you, and which is why I want you to speak a bit about it, which is how it got formed because of because it falls right under the trade routes.
Crossing of train routes. It's Bangalore to Chennai. And then from the north to the south, from the Gulbarga, Raichur, even now that road is there, Alashimoga and the Bandra.
Right.
It crosses and goes into south. It goes into the Hosur on this side, Krishnagiri, and the other side it goes into Salem and so on. So that is why it was formed because of that almost. And the Nadaprabhu Kempegoda, the senior Hiriyaro, he actually ruled from Yelahanka. And he came to this part of where Bangalore is now to hunt or something like that, and something happened, and there is some various stories, and he decided, and he had spent time apparently in Vijayanagar. And he was a vassal of Achyutaraya. And he saw Hampi in its glory, and he had apparently some idea to create something. And Bangalore never started as a village. It started as a town. It does not have a village origin.
Correct.
The original town envisaged by him, it had all the 17 or 18 major communities were brought together, given place. Avaglindané layout ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಲ್ಲ.
Correct. Okay,
and it was brought together it was a fortified town with a mud wall. Then there was also a stone fort built later.
Interesting. So, and then the whole Rajakalve was part of the
biggest issue when you do that is where's the water. You can take everything to a city. You can take an economy. You can take a people. You can take the craft. You can do all this. But neer ilde enu madakagalla. You can't do it without water. So and this is much, much before Kempegoda, right? Bangalore's settlement history goes to the Ganga dynasty around the 500, 400 AD, that time. From that time, some smart guys, what they've done is wherever the shallow areas, where they put bunds, there are no natural lakes in Bangalore. Because we're in a hilltop, all of them are bunds and they are artificial tanks. And one tank, it was a cleverly designed system which solved two problems. One is water. And every tank, when it filled up, it had a sluice gate, it overflowed to the next. So there are 3 tank systems in Bangalore. And the city is in the middle. So what happened was when they built these 3 tank systems, they allowed it to overflow and become marsh.
Interesting.
Right? And it also became a defense mechanism. Otherwise, Bangalore has no defense from any side.
Right. So these became natural moats in some way.
They're natural marshes, so you could not bring carts over them and you get stuck. You can't bring guns, cannon and all that. So they created this thing and only allowed 4 entry points into the city. One from the north, which is the Kempegowda Tower at Makery Circle. One from the east, which is the Kempegowda Tower at, that was the high point, the Ilak at Alsur Lake.
Right.
One from the south, actually 2 from the south. One tower doesn't exist anymore. One from Lal Bagh. They could see who's coming.
Correct.
And then one from the southwest, which is Kempambudi Kere, which is again created by Kempegowda at that
Interesting.
time. That's his family deity, Kempama. That's he is named after that.
Okay.
So
This is again interesting. Didn't know that.
Kempambudi Kere is done by him. Allondi Delhi. There is one more tower. So you could only, so it was also what a clever thing, no? Combination of a defense mechanism. And these towers were the outpost to look for invading. That time, 500 years ago, must have been crazy, right? Armies coming,
Correct.
people raiding.
Correct.
It would have been a violent time at that time.
K100 was sort of an evolution to...
No. So what these guys did was, when I spoke about one lake overflowing into another, they were connected by these Rajakalavas,
Right.
which were what natural swales, which allowed part of the water to go back into the ground to recharge the wells, the normal wells, and part of it to go and flow into shallow areas where it becomes bodies of water. So from Majestic, which is the bus stand, Dharmabiti Kere, the overflow comes into beyond City Market down to Kalasipalya, where there was another big Kere, which doesn't exist anymore, which was supplying water to the fort. From there, it connected to what is our Shantinagar bus stand, which was another Kere.
Right.
Okay. And then it went further up and where Adugodi National Dairy Research Institute, that is Koramangala Kere. All the Keres, because of various, I should say real estate reasons and various other
Developmental purposes, if you would like to call
they
it.
were declared as mosquito and malaria causing places. And at one time, they were all filled in and taken over as real estate. In front of my office is Akitimanaldi Kere. That's a Kere.
The hockey stadium is actually originally
I took this office because of the Kere and they filled it up. And there's that mosquito control measure.
Oh, damn.
For malaria control or something. And they used this excuse and filled it up. Now we've lost almost, I would say, 70%, 80% of the lakes or tanks that were there 200 years ago. All gone.
That's sad.
So K100 is an attempt to bring back that Rajakalaya was made into a concrete ditch, and everybody thought it was a mori. It was a kachara.
Everybody assumed it as sewage. Like people
All the sewage network around that area is fully broken. So all the raw sewage was flowing. People were throwing trash into it. When we excavated it, we found the entire sofa set with side table inside that. If people were throwing anything, they tried lifting the walls. They tried fencing it. People are throwing it over there. It wasn't solving the problem. So we took the reverse approach, behavioral psychology, and again, bring the people into people interests. Lowered the wall so you can see what other people are doing. Push the sewage into sewage pipes. Put a walkway inside, because it rains only 60 days a year in Bangalore, contrary to what people think. 300 days a year, it's usable, so it becomes a walkway. For 300 days a year, you can walk from Shantinagar to Bellandur now in a very short while. You can already walk almost halfway now.
It's developed for about a kilometer to 2, right? It's a total of...
It's 11 kilometers.
No, but how much is
You can
developed?
walk 8. About 4 of that is done.
Oh,
Another 4 is half done.
okay.
It'll be done by the end of this year.
Okay.
And all the sewage is gone. Almost completely eliminated. And whatever balance is there, one sewage treatment plant has been newly built inside Kalasipalya. That's another theme that I'm trying to bring to the city called decentralized services. Why should you take everything and throw it in the hinterland and spoil some villagers' life? No? So the city should treat its waste, both solid and liquid, at source, at a ward level. So we try to do that now.
That's an experiment you are attempting at Kalasipalyam.
It's already done. It's already releasing about 2 million liters of treated water every day. It'll go up to 5 million liters. So Bangalore, after many years, to go back to my first point, will get its first river. It'll be
Original.
throughout the year, you'll get 1 foot of water flowing and you can walk next to it. It's like a stream. I won't call it a river. But the first...
Yeah, but still, yeah.
Bangalore has one river. It's a rivulet, I would call it, called Vrishabhavati anta. Malleswaradinda, Kadu Malleswara temple India, it goes all the way to and becomes a Vrishabhavati and joins Kaveri at that Kere behind the Toyota factory. Aದೇನು Kere.
Correct. Adra hindgade join ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
But that thing is completely polluted. You see all foam and in bad shape. So my thing is that these centralized sewage systems are not working. So maybe a decentralized model. So it's multiple things happening there. One is also women and child safety there. There are a lot of slummy areas, a lot of
through that. Yeah.
Now it's all been cleaned up, neatly concreted, well lit. So the whole area's safety level has improved. Cleanliness. People, the same Church Street effect is happening. So Church Street, you might say, is, middle class and upper middle class
and all of that.
This is the poorest people of the city. Only they were living next to a stinking drain. They couldn't afford anything else. Suddenly it's cleaned up. And the funniest indicator I have found of the whole project's success. What is the motivation to keep it like that for the people who live there? What do you think it is?
Ideally, the fact that it's cleaner or
No.
the sense of community comes in.
Real estate value is triple three.
Oh, wow.
What was 3,500 rupees square foot is now 10,000 bucks a square foot. So I'm waiting for third wave coffee or something to open Canal View.
Makes sense.
I know the project has succeeded.
Nice.
Fully.
Yeah.
The people are starting.
How'd
You notice people living there have started painting it. Some ice cream shop has opened there. Not a third wave coffee.
Not yet.
Yeah,
third wave.
Slowly that area is changing. I can see it in front. It's just being cleaned up. It's not being gentrified. And nobody has been displaced. No land has been acquired. And all encroachments have been removed voluntarily. We went and told everybody what encroach thing. Your choice. You have like 2 weeks. You take it out, or one crane will come and take it out. Everybody, they all said, we agree this is the drain, let's keep it.
Interesting.
And it goes through some of the poorest areas and it's a strange drain. The first part goes under the city. The second part from the mosque, Tawakkal Masjid.
Correct.
From there up to JC Road is Kalasipalya.
Right.
But you know what Kalasis are, no? The horse looker afterers of Tipu Sultan.
Yeah.
There's a whole community there. They are starting to respect it. From there it goes to Sudam Nagara, which is a bunch of textile hubs, small businesses, manufacturing units. There are some Devanga communities also still there, and etc. A lot of migrants and so on. It crosses double road and it becomes a institutional area, KSRTC, BMTC.
Correct.
Then after you cross Bannerghatta Road, it becomes a slum area. Karnataka Slum Development Board has built a lot of homes there. And once it crosses that, it goes into an upmarket area, a steep bit of Koramangala, where all it's a more more fancy area.
Millionaire clubs.
And the train goes through all that. And it's interesting that we have to treat each part differently.
I think if it's done well, it would be a great experiment of how one infrastructure could connect a city like Bangalore with all its diversity.
150 kilometers of Rajakalve and another 400 kilometers of secondary Rajakalves, the feeder train. This itself has 11 kilometers of direct Rajakalve and about 30 kilometers of feeder trains.
Interesting.
MG Road water goes into that train. So remember, so almost a 30-kilometer watershed, 30 square kilometer watershed, pushing water into that drain. So if you can use it as public infrastructure and make a grey infrastructure into a green corridor, and you also allow a non-motorized way for people to just walk.
Correct.
No worry about vehicles crossing, nothing. All the bridges have been replaced into nice looking bridges.
Yeah.
And you'll see now within 6 months or a year, You see the emergence of a new, it's almost like you regained kilometers of real estate.
Right. In some sense, yes.
It's like, let's come back to, and we've got created 3 new parks are coming.
Right.
One is ready on Double Road, one is coming in. And notice, this time when it rained, there is no sewage in the drain, very little, about 2-3. There was 130 million liters flowing. Now it's about 3 to 5 million liters. That's about 99% gone. The see the kind of advantage it has brought now. The whole real estate logic of that whole place is changing. The people are
dynamics of the whole real estate and the people getting involved
and
to protect it for their own.
It's all well lit, so
Safer.
much safer to move. There are a lot of unsavory characters on that street. And 2, it also creates a kind of new civic pride, not one new street to walk on.
Yeah.
No shopping, nothing, nobody bothering you.
Yeah.
It's a nice thing to...
it will be a lovely thing, hopefully, if the government completes it.
The World Bank has taken cognizance of it and is going to advance almost about... They've sanctioned in principle about close to 4,000 crores. 450 kilometers of primary and 450 more kilometers of secondary. If you do that, imagine what will happen. Bangalore will get a 900 kilometer long waterfront.
Wow.
For a city which is not next to the water, this is like a thing, no?
Oh, that is probably on, at least for all the Bangaloreans, it's on, this will be on top of the wish list right now. Forget move over, flyovers and
it should. We have been struggling for 3-4 years. There are a lot of social issues. People are throwing a little bit of garbage. People are not still the people on the drain are not throwing garbage. People are coming from somewhere else in scooters and throwing trash and going. People are used to that behavioral change.
Habitual.
Will take 2-3 years to. It has to be. It cannot be enforced by law. It has to be enforced by the people themselves.
Correct. I agree.
Pride ತಗೋಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ ನಮ್ಮೂರು ಅಂತ
Adnija.
ನಮ್ದು ಅದು ಅಂತ.
So what do you think about the overall development of Bangalore as you see it? Say, for example, a couple of classic examples that everybody will talk about. Traffic, potholes. Traffic, everybody asks one question. Do you think more flyovers will solve the problem? And we anyway have enough and more flyovers, or at least all of them being built as we speak for half a decade or more.
It is unfortunate that we are somehow both our political, bureaucratic, as well as the policy-making apparatus of the government responds to a problem with a project or projects. If you say traffic, they will respond saying widen the road or build a flyover. They conflate the word development with building flyovers. They never conflate the word development with building footpaths.
Right.
It's a fundamental issue. 2, there are multiple lobbies at play. You cannot really pin it down on one political outfit or the other. But all of them are.
It's been a constant problem with in Bangalore, irrespective of political parties.
Instead of responding, I have been trying myself hoarse by saying that whenever a city is a growing city, this is not difficult, very, very difficult. Bangalore's population has doubled in the last 10-12 years. We are only some 70 lakhs, there's some 1.3 crore or something.
Yeah, we're going through the fastest rapid urbanization, fastest human migration.
City is not able to keep up with it. But the government also does not trust the private sector fully to involve them in a PPP way. The word is used. It's not done. What is happening is more than the word PPP is seen as a partnership with the private sector. So I want to, if you let me, I will redefine it for you. When there is an issue, the government should respond with a policy. That's the first P.
Interesting.
Right? Then you go into a process of how will you take that process from policy to the last P is the project. Here what happens, every time there's a problem, they start with the project and it fails because neither the process is in place or neither is an enabling policy. And every year you hear the same thing. Potholes, we'll fill it in 15 days. Everybody says exactly the same.
Correct.
And whenever it rains, It all floods. Next year, we will fix the Raja culverts. This year, the only drain that didn't flood was K100 because of a simple policy change, not a process. Then we put in a process and then we made a project. How will you solve Bangalore's traffic problem? I'll give you in one line what to do.
Please, I think that would be the
Line, that's all.
most important thing in this conversation.
All development projects aimed at increasing mobility options as well as improving mobility should start with one policy change. It's called move people, not private vehicles.
Interesting.
There's one line.
Because I think everything...
Move people. If you a train takes 3,500 people an hour. And, people in cars, if you take cars in for the same distance, you will move 300.
Yeah.
A metro will move 10 times the people. A bus will move 5 times the people, etc. So if you just change, suppose you say the guiding policy of Bangalore's traffic
problem.
mobility. I would not even call it traffic, it's mobility. ಅದೊಂದು 6ನೇ ತತ್ವ ಆಗಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮಹಾಭೂತ ಥರ. ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಏರ್, ವಾಟರ್, ಆಕಾಶ, ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟ್ರಾಫಿಕ್. ನೋ, ಪಂಚತತ್ವದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೆ ಅದು.
Correct. At least for back.
Actually, the only tattva that works in India is Akasha, which is broadband. Alva, blink it comes in 10 minutes.
Correct.
You should replace Akasha with mobility. Like, if you do that, what will happen is that then you put in a process to say what has to be done to move people. And then you do projects. Instead, what will happen here, when there is a traffic problem, somebody will say, let's put a tunnel. A tunnel is a flyover underground. That's all. Otherwise, they say put a flyover on top. And you can say one more lane, one more. If you build it, they will come. That is in Tattva in English also. They say like that. People will actually buy more and more private vehicles if they actually see more and more plans of infrastructure being created. By the time the infrastructure is created, it's already beyond capacity. And it has been proved the world over. And this is an American thinking from the fossil fuel era of the 80s, where they thought fossil fuels will last forever.
Correct.
And you had this idea of downtown and suburbia and people driving around from place to place on really wide roads. But that even America has abandoned that now. India, we have still not left that thinking, and we are still stuck in this, what I call the fossil fuel era of city development. What you need to do now is completely reverse. You start with the neighborhood, fix the ward, go bottom out, from in out, and make sure that the mobility networks of the city are in place. Till today, we don't have an inner ring road.
Correct.
Okay. And I cannot understand why they are not putting circular metros now. There are lines going in all directions.
Right.
Why do we all have to go only to Kempagoda terminus to change? Because you want to change direction, you can't do it in a metro today unless you go to the center.
That's interesting, but that also has to do with some level of, I think, planning and some technicality around it. I mean, because even now places like New York.
Now they have mastered how to do tunnels in Bangalore. We know what. Putting a no, also it's a question of allocation of resources, right? So if you go on putting more and more money into infrastructure for private vehicles, moving cars faster and faster, because the people who are making these decisions are driving around in cars.
True.
They are not taking buses.
True.
And it's also a political economy issue.
Yeah.
So projects fuel the political economy.
Correct.
To put it euphemistically. So it's become almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's not even... You will reach a point where, I don't know, maybe there will be a permanent traffic jam one day that nobody can untangle ever. Or maybe you have to cut your way out with blowtorch. That's what is going to happen now. It is the worst ratio of any city in the world. I told you all the best reasons, Bangalore, right?
Yeah.
Why is Bangalore one of the worst reasons? Proportion of vehicles, privately owned vehicles to citizens, is almost 1:1.
Oh, wow.
There are 1.2 crore vehicles and almost 4,000 registered every day. Private vehicles in Bangalore. You know that?
No, I did not know. This is
4,000 vehicles. So Singapore, for instance, by comparison, we love to compare Bangalore.
Yeah, we always Singapore model, Singapore, SM Krishna Kalrinda.
But the one thing we haven't learned from them is 18% of Singapore owns a private vehicle.
And that's because of their public infrastructure.
Yeah.
And the pride in their public infrastructure.
They put all the money into it. And the funniest part of Bangalore's mobility, if you take the intermodal split, who goes in bus, who walks, who goes in private cars, who goes in two-wheelers, do you know the split?
No.
It's a very strange split.
Okay. What is it?
15% walks. They can't afford even a bus. 15% of the city walks to work, walks everywhere.
Not even a bus.
No. There are about 15% of the city owns a car. That's all. Out of the 1.2, there are about 15 to 20 lakh cars. 15 to 20 lakh people walk. Okay. A whopping 45%, 40 to 45% take the bus. And the bus, a metro is till now about 6%. For whatever you see. That's all. Metro, its peak capacity will be about 10 to 12%. Even when they finish phase 3.
Okay.
The bus, the humble bus,
it moves people the most.
And
even now,
5 years back, we had 6,500 buses occupying 0.3% of road area. There are only 6,500 buses, and this year the number has gone down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there are less buses than 4 years ago. The government, it's what I call the common man's overground, easy to do, invest, but it's not romantic enough for the government to they want to do all this metro, tunnel, flyover.
Sounds sexier, at least. Than saying we procured 100
Look at that. And all that is being done for the private, and there are about 50 lakh two-wheelers in the city.
This probably does not include the current gig economy and what's happening with Blinkit and all of that. I think it will be more is what I'm saying. Especially with more people coming inside in Bangalore.
So 15 lakh cars. 15%, not even 10% of the total modal split of the city. Or 50,000 crores of infrastructure is being invested. I can think of a lot more things to do with 50,000 crores. I would put a circular ring. I would develop the 8 satellite towns around Bangalore. But we should spend the money and develop all that. Put in rail links and also circular links around like that. Bangalore has reached its capacity. We cannot go on and on pushing more and more development into the city without putting in an effective mobility solution, which means circular rings of metros now have to start coming.
Interesting. Do you see that happening? Do you know whether it is part of the plan?
It is happening, but too little, too late, too delayed. By the time they do it, the city would have gone to some other level.
Yeah, that is true.
They're not keeping up with
the pace of actual development of pace of the demand is the right way to put it. Interesting.
So it's complicated. So the policy change, if it happens, move people, not private vehicles. From that shall flow the revolution. But for that little insight to come to somebody high up in power, I don't know what it will take. India has 3 separate lists, right? One is called the central list, one is called the state list, and one is called the concurrent list. Concurrent is it needs both center and state to agree to do something.
Right.
They get elected only for 4 or 5 years. The first year they're consolidating. They do something in the second and third year. In fourth year they're back in election mode. To a party to rule, we should have an articulated mandate. And I found out that 150 square foot of office space is generating about 2,500 square feet of real estate demand. In Singapore, to buy a private vehicle, the certificate of entitlement costs 150 to 200% the cost of the vehicle. People are not moving to Bangalore because of its weather, though you might think so. They're definitely not moving here because of traffic. They're moving here for only one reason: economic opportunity.
What happened with the gig economy over the last decade, maybe, right? Including what happened with the Olas and Ubers to then the Swiggies and Zomatos, and now we're seeing the Blinkits and Reptos of the world.
The engineers are all our people sitting in Bangalore who do nothing for the city.
I'm sure you know a lot of those billionaires yourself.
Not just in Bangalore, we are in 30 locations across the country. So we built most of India's scientific infrastructure in the last 25 years, both for the government as well as the private sector.